So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. This parenting session called 21st Century Parenting Boys versus Girls, hosted by Ms. Clark's Math Space. And our featured guest speaker is Mrs. Arlene Smith. And I am so excited to have her do this first session because she is phenomenal. She's dynamic in her field. She is certified, and this is her profession as a social work specialist with her master's with distinction in social work. So, why I wanted to have this session is because I feel as though we all need help. As a teacher, sometimes I struggle in terms of making sure that I use the right strategies to get to my students. And we can't paint each student with the same brushstroke. No, we shouldn't do that at all. So I found it best that we get ourselves educated so that we can better deliver and better have our children, our students more receptive to learning and to their advancement, both academically, professionally, personally, and in terms of, I find it honestly in line in terms of knowing their vision, knowing who they are, and making sure that we target solutions so that they too can be successful. So without further ado, I just want to welcome Mrs. Arlene Smith and to thank all of you all for being here for this session.
Good afternoon. I hope you have your pen and paper. I want us to start. My name is Arlene Smith. It is such an honor to be here. I am an educator. I love what I do, and youth are my passion, one of my passion. And I discovered that one of the thing you can't really speak about youth and not address parental the environment in which they come from. So when we think as people in a society, everything, the genesis of every person comes from a family. That's the reality. And I hope this afternoon you are excited. I do hope that you will participate and really enjoy this 2-week session. Today being part 1 and next week part 2. So you have a little homework to do. We like to tell our kids to do their homework. So I want to start with an icebreaker just to ask the question, anyone, how is parenting in the 21st century? So would anyone just like to briefly share, is there a difference or not? Is there a difference in parenting boys and girls? Is there, do children live what they see? So would anyone like to brave? Sometimes we tell our kids, be brave and talk. How is parenting in the 21st century? Is it the same like when you were a child? What do you see? Is there a difference? Or do children live what they see? So who is the brave person? I like for us to do a session together.
Okay.
Thank you. To hear.
Yes, I think it's a bit different, a lot different, because children have access to so much more information at their fingertips than we had. So we would have taken certain things that our parents would have said for granted. I mean, as law, but the average child now, they would may one have already stumbled upon the information that they bring any question about, and two, they tend to question our responses much more than I would have questioned my parents.
Wow.
So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, they plenty, They are 50 cents. That is, you could go to the front of the class. So we'll be discussing. So with your pen and paper, I want you to really say, you know what, if there's a difference and if children live what they see, I mean to say that could be argued. It could be argued. But just for us, so next week we'll say at the end of this journey, if that was, I don't know if you all are seeing a green, highlighter. I'm uncertain, but if you all are, I do apologize. Technology is not one of my very strong points. Miss Clark, are you seeing a green square? Or is just me seeing it from this place?
It would just be you seeing the thing, so you could maximize it so that you could see the whole screen if you want.
Oh, oh,
Good.
no,
Yes,
there
you're
was
seeing
this.
the whole screen now.
Oh, okay.
Good.
But when I do it like this, you all seeing the whole screen likewise.
No, it's cut
No,
off.
it's in part.
All right, okay. Well, let me leave it like this then. I'm seeing a green square like a frame. Are you all seeing that also?
No.
Okay, so just give me 1 second. So I'm going to show you a picture while I rectify that.
Okay.
Are you all seeing this picture?
Yes.
There are 6 pictures here. A pen, a pack of KoolAid, a timer, like a long time in ancient days, they would have used that to tell time, our timer, a towel, a broom, and a toilet. So while I'm rectifying the problem, I'll just stop the PowerPoint and just see what's happening. I want every person who is on here today to use one item there to teach their child a life skill. So I'm going to stop sharing just for a minute, but you have to now share with me, with us, one life skill from any of the pictures.
So I know that there is a pen, a KoolAid pack, a towel. That's what I recall seeing.
Mhm.
And you want me to use a life lesson from
Yes.
one of them?
Mhm. You could
Mhm.
teach a student from your position, teaching a student on any of these items. Picture. 21st century, there's so many pictures. A life lesson.
All right, so I'll go first.
Okay,
Sorry.
I will.
Okay, great.
Okay,
You can go ahead. That's fine.
all right. I will do it KoolAid.
What just happened there? You're like, don't understand what is happening. Yes, go ahead. But do
Yes, with the KoolAid. As you know, when you put KoolAid, it's a colored powder that when you mix in any liquid, it changes the entire color of the liquid. Well, clear liquid, it changes. So I can see it as a child being either positively or negative, being a positive or negative influence within their environment. In a way to say first impression lasts, or whatever you do, there are consequences that could be spread around.
Oh, nice.
So that's how I see it with the KoolAid.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else? Thank you, Sherilyn. Would like to share what is one thing you could teach?
I guess I could try with the towel. In life, there would be spills that you would need to clean up. A towel is a versatile thing that you can use, not just for the body, but it could also clean up spills on the floor.
Nice. Who would like to go next?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good
I would
afternoon.
say the pen, the person that holds the pen has the power to write their future, write what they want to see happen and be impactful in that way, write their story.
Great. Thank you for that. Tahila, what about you? You have any more to add to your 2 cents?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Is it hourglass you said there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, my interpretation would be like within that, where the hourglass would be the importance of time, not wasting time, and it time is so valuable that we need to do meaningful thing in life.
Nice.
I wish you all will take a picture of this. Take a picture of it and ask your child or your ward or it's the one impact to teach you a life lesson on it, and it will blow you away also. Anyone else would like to contribute? One thing you could teach.
Hi, I would use the broom and the stick. It's not just the broom is not just to clean, although cleanliness is next to godliness, but we could also unscrew the stick, use it to exercise, reach. So the broom for me.
Oh, thank you. Y'all, every time I do this, I'm so amazed what people, the life lessons they could teach in it. Would one more person like the opportunity? Okay. So with today's objective, if someone do it, you can. Don't deprive yourself of the opportunity. So today's objective, we'll be defining parenting, but we'll be journeying to that place. Is there a difference between parenting boys and girls? The theory from the expert and the positive parenting and solutions. Remember that this is a two-part. So when we reach to things like the theory from the experts and the positive parenting and solution, that will be shared next week. So this is just the overview of what the 21st century parenting is all about. So you can't talk about parenting without first talking about communication. We all have to communicate. And could anyone tell me a form of communication? Remember, I told you all we are all doing this today. We are all experts. What's one form of communication do you know? Am I alone here? What is one form of communication?
Speaking.
Verbal.
Speaking. Someone said non-verbal. So
Written.
Written. Excellent. So we know that in a world that we exist in, there are communication styles. So as everyone says, the ability to verbal. So we have been exercising verbal. We have been exercising non-verbal, where we are able to capture non-verbal will be things when our body language is speaking. Now, some persons may have a disability and they can't speak, but our form of non-verbal is like the man in the plaid shirt. He's observing, he's engaging, but he's just using his body language to speak. So we have verbal, non-verbal, we have written. Now, written is a dynamic, because when we speak about written communication, we are not only speaking about emails and texting, but our kids in the 21st century really ideally live in a written world. They exist in a cyber world, this written and through texting and social media and communicating. And then there's also another style of communication that most persons are not taught about. You're sure the rest you would have heard them, but there's a style of communication that all human beings communicate.
Excuse me, miss.
Yes?
Oh, I'm now going to tell you I'm hearing another type of communication in the background.
Yes, my neighbor's dog.
Oh my goodness.
and then they will just stop, or I'll have to escape. Let me see if I can escape. Give me a minute. Then they go to the back. Just one more.
That's fine. I love the versatility, how you're on your toes and you're just adapting. That's awesome.
And the thing about it is, part of parenting is our ability for adaptability. So not only about IQ, we could talk about IQ. And we could talk about IQ, meaning that we could speak from the place. So that is one form of communication just ended there. And you know, the dogs come to the back now. But most times we focus on IQ. And most parents ideally want in that form of communication where children are, they want the A's and they want them to do their best. But the thing that have not been taught to us is EQ, which is emotional intelligence, and the us understanding our emotions, how to communicate, how to be effective, understanding all these verbal and non-verbal, these different languages. And then there's the AQ, which is our ability to be adaptable. So when we think about communication, as I was going to share with you all with regards to sensory, is where we communicate with our five senses. So apart from one speaking or not speaking or texting, our communication is influenced by our five senses. How we see things physically, how we interpret things through your nose, the smelling, the discernment. That's why we say we're smelling something fishy. How we speak, how we hear, the tone in which we hear it, how we touch, are forms of communication that have not been taught us, but really affects the way people communicate and interact with their physical world around them. So you can't talk about parenting if you don't talk about communication. So this is important. In the 21st century, parenting is kind of different. And I try to get pictures to capture what it is for the child as we communicate. And sometimes we as parents in the 21st century, remember a long time, you used to hear your mother used to hear a whisper. And she said, what you say there? But now parenting seems to be in a place where, just like how the picture show, that picture to my left on your right, and the child is now feeling like they're under scrutiny. And how that sometimes could pose as a barrier to communication. We talk in parenting, but we can't talk parenting without communication. And then understanding the language. So we said verbal, and we said non-verbal, and we said written. But then that's a language by itself. So when we look at things as written, I am always trying to be so creative to figure out what they mean by these little things. Like you see cheddar, and it means money. If I saw cheddar, I will think of cheese. And how important it is for us to know these language. If I hear my child say goat, I wouldn't be thinking about the greatest of all times. I may just simply be thinking about, you see a goat, an animal? And if they said Gucci, I will think about the brand. Because in my world, these things have a very tangible thing. But for them, if they go to the cool, you know, them young people always bowling, they go, they are cool. Everything okay, it was all right, you know, these little things. When they say lit, it moved from cool to amazing. When they say sigh, it's something that is cool. You understand? Sometimes they say sigh, or they do the face a kind of way and they think the shoulder and you know, you get it right. And then snapped, it look good. Now I think a snap is, I lose my temper. Oh, now I think of it and they think about snapped and they think, oh, maybe take a picture. But for them, it means, look, it looks good. And TBH. So these are languages that if us in the 21st as adults, sometimes if you're not familiar with this in parenting, you can get left behind and lost. To be honest, I didn't know none of these things. I had to inquire. And then if the child says, I'm thirsty, I'll say, maybe you want some juice or some water. And they mean trying to get attention. And if they say V, I might go to the private part. If it's my daughter, say V. I say, V, what does that mean? Does it mean your private part, something is wrong there? It means to them very. And then I don't know if I'm saying YOLO or if they just call it out how they do, because sometimes I can't keep up. But it means you only have, some people they say one life to live, you only live once. So the thing about it is we can't talk about parenting without talking about communication. We can't talk about interacting with other individuals without communication. So I hope we were clear there that we must agree in the 21st century, it's kind of different because we said what we mean and we mean what we said. If you're a child of the 70s, 80s, and behind there or 90s, we literally say what we meant. And with little slangs, you're looking sick. And when they say you're looking sick in our time, you're looking real sick, it meant you're looking real good. Now, it will be snapped. So let's define what is parenting. So we talk a little bit about communication, which is an active part of parenting, the core of parenting. But parenting is our ability or child rearing, some studies say, that promotes and supports the physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and intellectual development of a child from infancy to adult. Parenting or raising a child is not exclusive for a biological relationship. So when we think about parenting, it wouldn't be fair to us to just think about the biological parents of that child, because some persons don't have children, but they have parents. And these are some of the people that do this exact thing, help us in parenting. Besides the caregivers, the parents, some persons may have had the opportunity to grow with relatives, whether it's grandparents or aunts or uncles. So that overview, that umbrella. But the teacher is a parent. The doctor and the nurse is a parent. The neighbor, because let me tell you something, if little Johnny gone and walking down the road and the person by the parlor or the neighbor who does be sitting in the porch, they might say, hey, stop that. You know, you're not supposed to do that. That is not a right thing to do. That's parenting. Or the person say, make sure and put your change in the bag and hold the bag good and walk down the road. You know, the parlor lady or the parlor man, them like to tell you that, put the money back in your pocket. Now hold the bag properly. That's parenting. So, and then we talk about our faith community, whatever faith that we all believe in, that faith community provides some level of parenting. So I remember the other day, a little boy came out on the parlor. There's a parlor across the road from me, and very excited. He bought 2 Malta. And as he walked out of the parlor, the bag fell, and there go crashing the 2 bottles of Smalta. I think it was Smalta. And the child looked so perplexed. The child started spinning the road. So my husband is giving this story. See, look at the little fella. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know if to run to. He didn't know what to do. He stand up just spinning. So he said he just took out he took out $10 to give the young man. He said, well, at least I will attempt to buy back 1. The young man said, no, it's 2. I had to get 2. So that was a form of parenting that a neighbor there that doesn't know the child was able to provide, whether it's the $20 to give the child, and the child hold the bag tightly and went skipping down the road. So those were offering physical, emotional, psychological, and different forms as parenting. So are we good there? So we are tuning in. Now, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to describe this, and I want at least 2 persons, 1 of each, to tell me the approach that they use for parenting. So I'll give you 1 minute to do this and think about which approach you use. So there is the benefit. A matter of fact, Ms. Clark, I think I want to, when I'm describing this, I think I want to set up 2 breakout rooms and put us in 2 breakout rooms really quickly for 2 minutes, because I want you to tell me the positive and the negative of if we use either one. So I'm creating 2 groups. So remember who in your groups. I'm going to describe it now, and I'm going to give you the opportunity now to tell me which one you think will make sense. Fair enough? So we're very interactive. I don't do presentation on my own. Everybody had to participate. So when we think about parenting, there's the deductive approach versus the inductive approach. So the deductive approach says that it starts with with a theory. It confirms a hypothesis. So I'll break that down for you. So I'm just telling you the terms. And it tends to do with quantitative style. So what that's saying through a deductive approach is that, you know what, generally in the Caribbean, we are all Caribbean people on this watch here, I suppose. And our parenting kind of looks similar for everybody. There are some things that look kind of similar based on our culture. So the deductive approach say that we starting with what we learn from the culture, whether we learn it from our great-grandmother, our grandmother, our grandfather. So that approach say it starts with, this is how we just do things. In Trinidad and Tobago, they are in our culture, they have subcultures. So an East Indian family, primarily there are some cultural things that they will have in similar, which may be a little different. And the Afro-Trinidadian families, that might be a little different to Spanish. Our indigenous people who might be different to now. We have persons, Venezuelans who live here in a high population who have now integrated into our culture. So they're starting with a theory. All I want you to know is that theory would be culture, the ethos, the spirit of your culture, how you eat, your moral values, how you parent, how you conduct business. So we're starting with that deductive. But what deductive say, it is confirming a hypothesis means I choosing this approach. And why am I choosing this approach to parenting? Because my grandmother do it. We people just do it like that. That is what we know as a people. If I'm an Indo-Trinidadian, that is how we just live. If I'm an Afro-Trinidadian, that is how we just live. If I'm Spanish Trinidadian. So it says now, because everybody in my culture live like this, I choose to live like this. So quantitative means plenty people just do it the way I just do it, and I know it, and I'll continue with that. Then we have the inductive approach, which says that it starts with data. So it's looking a little different. One is a theory, so we could understand that. My grandmother do it, my mother do it. So we could say this is how we just cook a curry. This is how we just make a pilau. This is how we just grow our children. So it becomes a theory, it's research. But with the inductive approach says that it starts with data. So you have some information. It infers a conclusion based on the data. And it tends to do with qualitative research. Qualitative research is persons' individual experiences, whether as an individual or as a nuclear family or as a blended family, meaning that our family is dynamic. We may have cousins and aunts and uncles or extended family. What it means is it starts with data. It means that I might be living Shogunas, and in my community, it is mix up of Afro and Indo-Trinidadians. And starting with some data is that I could watch how Raj and Sheila grow their children. And I could say, you know, I like that. I like how their families operate. So I could start with that data. So it may not be the thing that I grow into, but based on observation, I like how Raj just grow his children. I like to see he and the children in outside in the little kitchen garden. And I now say, you know what, I could take that from them. So I take in some data and I come up with the conclusion. I see Raj and how his family enjoying it, and I want to enjoy it. So that now becomes my personal experience. So I want you in 2 minutes, Miss Clark, I want you to help me time that 2 minutes. It's
No
two
problem.
questions asked. The deductive approach, so take your picture just in case, or the inductive approach, and what have been your style of parenting? Was it based on what you learned from your family, or was it based on a little bit of everything? And what's the positive and what's the negative? So you have 2 minutes, and I will not be in the room because I don't want to be biased.
So we're going to open the rooms now. Please
Yes.
make sure you have your screenshots, and then just click join the room and
Right.
start talking.
Any questions? I want to tell only who in our group. Evelyn, Mary, Miss KL in the group, Stephanie in that group. The second group is Jasmine and Tahila. This group will be biased. So I'm going to take, right. So we're going to join now.
All right.
You put on the timer for the 2 minutes.
Yes. Hi.
All right, good. All right. Thank you. I'm going to get my fan quickly. I had to change locations. I'm coming back. You have the final.
I came out of the breakout room by.
Hello, I didn't realize we leave the room already.
It's 2 minutes plus you all had 60 seconds. So it come like 3 minutes you all got. What's the quickly problem
We
solved?
didn't manage that time properly at all.
That's what happens when you're having fun. And it has some people just hold out to the end. They're not coming until it bumps them back off. So they should all be joining us shortly. Yeah.
And we're all
Hi. I see Jasmine ready. So like Jasmine is one of the team leaders. So who is going to represent the group? Represent your team. Let me hear what you all come up with. Do you do the deductive? You start with what you know and are sticking with what I know. It worked for mommy and daddy and tanty and nene and not changing. Or somebody say, listen to me. I travel and I see the white people do something and I went here and I see this and listen to me. I will take a little everything like a peel out. So Jasmine, which group you're representing? Who was in the group? All right.
One other person.
Right, that's okay. That's okay. Yes. So Jasmine, which one are you taking?
Well, I'll just give you a brief summary of what we discussed. I went from my personal experience, being a parent, and I said that I use the deductive approach. There's a lot of elements of it that I continue with, even though now I'm trying to revise that. And I think in revising it, I would more be stepping into the inductive approach. And the other member of the group basically said she uses both. You know, she would employ the both of them, a mixture based on what she would have known growing up and also based on, you know, what she would have observed through observation. I spoke about the positives and the negatives of it. The positives is that some of the good things would have been passed on, so it would be hereditary, and those are some good traits. And then there are the negatives, like I say, for me, I spank. That's part of my method. I pass on. We used to beat, mommy. I get licks growing up, you know, and that's a house in our house, so that's what we knew. So my children they get licks.
And you proudly say, she said they get licks. Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, and I can guess they're under 10.
Yes, they are. Say hi, Jer.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, nice to meet you. So in the group 1, what do you want? So you're deductive or you're inductive? Who representing group 1? Who was in group 1? Talia, Stephanie, Evelyn. Who was in group 1?
Group 1 was really Evelyn, Mary, and I. But
Right.
Evelyn spoke a lot, so Evelyn, you could go ahead. I think we only had time for Evelyn to talk.
Come, Evelyn,
So
share
Evelyn, you
from
can
your
share.
knowledge.
Oh my Lord. But I did talk, but I guess somebody else could have do.
Yeah, come, Evelyn. Let we hear from your fountain of virtue there, man.
Okay, well, it's just that I was talking about my parent, how I grew up with my parenting style versus now. And I said, okay, the thing that stood out is we had a different style with discipline and all that, differently, of course. And during that time, you couldn't do anything wrong because the neighbor was able to correct you. So, you know, you had that fear instilled in you from small. But now you dare not do that to somebody else's child because it's a different environment. And another thing, you had more bonding then because you had family time more now versus with all the devices. It's like the children is crouch potatoes. Everything is click, click, click in the ears right through. That's all they hear. So they have no time to bond, no family bonding. They don't even know games like long time, you know. You're socializing and all that. So that is my take on it. And then we see, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
I'm
what
going to
I'm
ask you,
saying,
Evelyn, who to blame for that. I just go to just be a little devil advocate and ask the question, who to blame for that? If we were inductive and we started do our own thing, or if we really were deductive and take a little bit from what we know and introduce it to the new.
well, as with everything, it have it negative and positive, you know, it's to bring a balance, of course, you know. Yeah.
So thank you all so much for sharing. And that is so important because, you know, in the journey of life, we may meet someone and their style of parenting might be a little different from us. And part of our culture is that anything different from us, we say that wouldn't work. So when my friend Jasmine say, I just give licks, compared to another parent who may say, I don't believe in that. I believe in punishment or consequences, but I don't believe in licks. So it's not really a right or wrong. It's what works for you and your family. So I thank you all for participating. At the outcome of that exercise you all just did, because I'm doing it, I like to show picture because our kids live in a picture world. Everything is a picture. We can either through our style reproduce as picture 1, and whatever is that style of parenting, whether it is positive or negative, there is that approach that through the deductive it could reproduce the behavior. So nothing does really irk a parent when they have a child just like themselves. And sometimes the child do come with your positives and negatives. And when they do things like the way you do things, sometimes that's the child you are always in conflict with. And it's because they duplicate and they have behaviors just like the environment, like the parents. But then we have the more inductive approach now, where people are now out on this journey as sojourners, creating this unique family style to meet their personal family needs. So it's like a sculpture. So one reproduce and one have this unique element of like a sculpture. What we ought to know, whether we choose a deductive approach or inductive approach in this 21st century, these are some of the deductive, these are some of the theory that all human beings of all culture go through stages of development. So there is the infant stage. Everyone was born and they went through the infant stage. And in the infant stage is where children learn the basic trust of their environment. This is where children learn that when they cry, the caregivers will come to their aid. When they're hungry, they will be fed. So the basic human needs, a child, a toddler, a baby know if that is being met or not. And some persons don't have that facilitation, so they experience mistrust. These will be children who will be left unfed, neglected, and even from a baby, they know that they are not treated. They know that they are being abused. They can't explain it, but they know that they are being neglectful. And evidently, every stage that we experience in life, positive or negative, they call the negative a psychosocial crisis. It affects us in our adulthood. So what an infant experience of trust versus mistrust, you could see today in your adulthood, persons who don't trust anyone. And if you ask them why they don't trust people, that person could journey you back to their childhood and talk about their childhood experiences of neglect and rejection. And because of that, they can't trust persons. Similarly, is the stage of toddler. So that will be about from 3 to that 2-3 age group there, where that child is now learning about autonomy. So this is where you will see the baby now wants to bring the pampers to you. They want to try to put on the slippers. They may try to hold the bottle and feed themselves. And when they don't get the opportunity of autonomy, that child will feel shame and doubt. Now, what's autonomy? Autonomy means just feeling independent, helping. So there are some families, it is not neglect, it is not child abuse by any means, but they just say, oh God, little Johnny, I don't want you to do nothing. Here's mommy, baby. No, mommy will take the pampers. It is okay. No, you don't put on your shoes like this. Put it on correctly. And what you may be doing is correcting the child, yes, but at the extent of that child feeling shame and doubting themselves. So it is very important where we allow our children to have some level of independence, and it is called autonomy also. Then we have the preschool age. So we know this is preparing for primary school. So this might be for some persons that's earlier 3, some persons between 4 and 5. And this is where your child learns initiative, making a friend in school, learning Miss name, bringing home a report. So Miss may say, don't forget to tell mommy and daddy to put this in your bag tomorrow. And they become these little messenger. It's very important why they allow them to be a part of the message, because it is helping them to use initiative, to know what is right, what is wrong. This is at the stage where our children choose their friends. So you might see the little miserable ones, they gang up together and they're looking at each other and they're looking for the self, like in a mirror. If it's a quiet child, you may see they lining with the quiet children, or sometimes vice versa. And when they can't, at preschool age, they start to feel guilt. So some parents may have fed their children through those age and they couldn't eat on their own and they couldn't hold the spoon because they don't want them to spill and make mess. But it's at the extent where your child now feel guilty because they go to preschool, see little Jane holding she plate, eating she food, Miss don't have to help, and Miss had to help me eat. So it makes them feel guilty. As they go into primary school, this is where they learn industry. So they learn about going to school and hearing the bell and know what to do when the bell ring and how to get to the class and to take out the books. So think of it, industry, working, like division of labor. They're working, they're participating in this. And when a child is incapable of doing what their peers are doing, this is where a child will start to feel inferiority. So this is the child who is in class and they can't communicate like others in class, and they can't achieve like others in class, and they can't get the books out in time like others in class, and they start to feel inferior. So this is between the whole primary school experience. This is the stage of a child's life where the parent, they see their world through their family experiences. So if they are in a healthy environment, they see a healthy world. If they are in a toxic environment, they see the world as toxic. So there's the positive and the negative. As they enter into adolescence, many things are happening at this stage. We know, according to the World Health Organization, adolescence starts at 10 now, because children's physical body is more developed. The girls, they start to see the shaping of their body. They start to get their bust start to be visible, their hip lines, they start to reshape. The young men, they start to reshape the little shoulders, the voice start to change. And some persons start that transition from as early as 10 years. Some young ladies see their menstruation. Now, during that time is a difficult time, even if we can remember that time ourselves. So you went from just happy to, for the ladies, you're seeing your period. For the boys, you have a voice that you know if the voice girly or masculine, it's heavy. They are experiencing different things. The private part is growing, the penis is changing. So many things is happening. But while that is happening on the inside, there is this hormone imbalance, the hormone that is they don't understand. You start to find they're going through mood swings because they don't understand. Sometimes it's high levels of cortisone, which causes their stress levels to be high, and especially if they are in a family that is high in conflict, if it's domestic violence. So high levels of cortisone, so they're feeling impaired and they're always anxious, or they're experiencing serotonin, and this is where they have mood swings. So one minute they're happy and they're okay, and the next minute they're confused, and we just, well, what is wrong with these children? And then they have the release of oxytocin, where they have these moments they're happy, and that could be they're on their phone and they're texting, or the young men playing a game, or the girls are watching a movie. And these are the kind of activities that now releases oxytocin, the healthy hormone, the happy hormone, the love hormone, the adrenaline. Now all this has happened to us. It still happens to us as adults, but this is the now introduction into this child. And at that stage of adolescence is where they are now trying to form their identity. And this role confusion to who am I? They're questioning their environment, they're questioning parenting, they're questioning meaning. And why, you may ask? Because there is something that is called the amygdala, a little pea like in our brain. We all have it. And what is happening? It is developing. And this is the stage of their life where it's emotions, they are tapping into their emotions, and also memory. So the child frontal cortex, which we adults have, does not start that development until around 18 years to 25. That's why we start to find when they reach in the 20s, they start to act a little more mature than when they were 18 and under. It's because that a further development of the brain is taking place and they are able to problem solve. So adolescence is a critical time of an individual's life journey, because it is where they form their identity. It is where we could all agree, every decision of our life today, we could track it back to adolescence. If you went to school and you achieved your goal in school and you come out, it determined the type of job. It determined where your future was shaped. The friends that you keep based on your identity could be positive and you can see a reward of that today. Or it could have been negative, where you choose negative peer pressures and you fell in love based on where you saw yourself. And today we could see a lot of relationship challenges based on decision, where those major life decisions occurred in adolescence. Are we good? Am I losing anyone? I could get a thumbs up. Anybody understand? You want to ask a question? It making sense?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yes, you're
So,
going good.
Learning a lot, learning a lot. Things that they take for granted, it now being explained, you know, and I've gotten a lot of knowledge.
right. So understand this as an adolescent. If imagine someone, I'm just giving this, and I hope it's no one's life here, but even though you can recover if it is. So as an adolescent, you didn't see yourself. You had a role confusion. You grew up in a family. You didn't have healthy role models, or you was curious, George. We will talk about that next week. And you decide that, you know what, I want to be with the friends who give in trouble. Now, you ain't understanding that the decision you make then will affect your future. You know, you in the here now. So you decide that some children decide they're not going to experiment on drugs. Now, that child don't know that the brain's still developing and the frontal cortex have not yet been developed. So what they don't know, it will impair their ability to problem solve. That's why we could see persons with a history of substance abuse and drug abuse. After a while, they have a short fuse of temper because they cannot problem solve. So they're either happy or they're aggressive. We will talk about that just now. But then what about persons who make poor decisions, teenage pregnancy? And yes, you survive it, but how did it impact going forward? Some people had the opportunity to finish school and they had families support them through. But what about those who did not have that and they had to stop and go and look for a job? Now, depends on the job they look for and the environment they're in. They choose another man or woman. And how we see this downhill spiraling, snowballing effect taking place based on a person who was incapable of forming their identity as an adolescent. That explains a lot of adult problem. But I want someone to know, even if that's your story, there is help now. There's recovery. You could recover. You could have a testimony and you could overcome. So as you go into young adults, remember you just finished teenage. For those who have an identity and know who they are, they go on to say, listen, maybe I want to further my education. Maybe I want to go and look for a job. This is the kind of young man or young lady I would like to be in love with. This is at this stage now you start to think about if you want to drive a car, if you want, what kind of house you want to live in, where you want to work. Now the person who have transitioned successfully through these stages, trust, autonomy, initiative, industrious, they have an identity. That person now could now go on to achieve those intimate goals. So this is where they go take a little bit from what they learn, the deductive, and they add a little bit about inductive based on their work experiences and the socialization. And they start to intimately develop a narrative of where they would like to go for the rest of their life from as early as about 20. However, there are some persons who really did not, they had a role confusion and they still find themselves very isolated, uncertain of what they want to do, where they want to go. This is, and I don't know, I just don't know. And they literally don't know. And this is where we come in to really support our kids when they're in that place sometimes of they don't know. We need to support them and not add added pressure to them. Yeah, but it's 21st parenting, long time. You had to figure it out. But now we can help that child and support them while they are trying to find themselves and continue to form their identity. And middle age, I assume that us online today right now is either between adulthood, which is between certain, all of us here is over 21 and 21 to let's say 50, around in that gap. And when we come to middle age, that is from between the ages of 35 to 50. Some studies say 55. So that wide gap, That is the stage of our life. They call it the first quadrant of our life, where people now they want to be married or in a stable relationship. They want the family type. They want a house. They want a car. They want this sense of security. And they call that generativity. It means it comes from the root word genes. And the root word genes meaning is something that you want to develop and reproduce, like a deductive, like when Jasmine say the family history and she used that and she adopt that. That is generativity. Stagnation, which is the psychosocial crisis, is when we have not achieved anything. You just time pass, you look back at your life, you have nothing, there's nothing. And how depressing it is for that person at that stage of their life to realize, I did not achieve anything. So as you journey to 60 years and over and beyond, this is where you see some people have an ego integrity. They pride themselves. They could tell about what they did in life, where they have been, their experiences, where there are some persons, and I'm certain we all know those two types of persons who are in despair. And they wonder to themselves, life have been bitter. And they start to envy the younger generation. And sometimes this person could become very venomous and not want well for others because their life has not been successful for them. And remember that success is relevant. Everyone's definition of success is different. So there's no black and white answer to success. So what happens through life is something that we cannot escape from, and it's conflict. You can't hide from conflict. Conflict will happen even when you're thinking about what outfit to wear, what food to cook, how to grow these children, how to parent children. Conflict. And some people, conflict style might be like the shark. Oh, they may care about nobody. They have no concerns for relationship. So this is the type that the person, we ain't going to parenting style yet. This is the person who will say, it's my way or the highway. So that is low concern for relationship. You don't have a feeling. We are doing it our way. Then there is the on the other end of the spectrum is the our way. This is the person who will say, you know what, I will take the inductive approach and do the our way. So that approach is high concerns for relationships. These are the persons who will say, how are our family going to do it? What are the roles in our? So they include everyone. They may be going to make a meal and they say, little Billy, what do you want? Little Jane, what do you want? So they incorporate all assets of everyone being a part of it, even if there's any little conflict. Where you all think we should go, it is our way. Some people have no way, no way. They're like the turtle. They make no contributions. And sometimes this is us, this is our children. We have to know the style, the conflict. It might be our partner. And they have no way. So they anyway, you know, the people is, well, anything. They just know it. They're not making any choices. Then it have those who on the other end of the spectrum now, from that no way to your way. So some people will say, well, anything, you know, if whatever you say. Sometimes we have those in relationship, in marriages, and even in our parenting. The child that will say, mommy, anyway, any school you put for me, I'll go. Anything you give me to eat, I will eat. And then there's the halfway, where it's like sly like a fox. And these are the people in our family that they start things and they don't like the end. So they're good at starting, but they kind of halfway, very sly like a fox. Anybody would like to tell me in 30 seconds, do you know your conflict style and your child conflict style? Anyone? Miss Clark, let me ask you as a teacher, because you're also a parent, do you see those styles in your class?
Most certainly I do. And I think for me personally, it would differ depending on the relationship that I am in. So if I am in a authority relationship in terms of I am the teacher, you are the student. My approach would be the owl. That would be my approach. But if it's like, say, in a toxic relationship and it's like, yo, you unhealthy, it's my way, or I push away, because I know that there are different relationships. So I know that it's between the shark and the owl for me. And if I in a really don't care situation and I really what happens to really matter, I think I might be the turtle.
Listen, I like that. You all let us talk now. Let us talk. You all, this is life, you know, communicating. And we really have to communicate with our kids. So we have to know who they are. Anyone would like to take a, just say who you are and who your child is or your children. I'm incapable of seeing. I'm hearing someone, but I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing. I want to be respectful of time, but you all we have to. I want it to be learning and a part of it. I don't want it just theater style, lecture style, and I'm just lecturing to you. Let's talk about it. It's our reality. Mary, what about you? Which style are you?
I would say the fox halfway because as you was explaining, you know, the generation different and they learn a lot of stuff on, let's say, the internet. So you try to understand their point of view as well, the children's point of view as well.
Wow. Okay, great. Anyone else would like to pitch in? You all, this is good to know. You can apply this in all relationships. Your platonic, when you go to work, you'll be laughing because when you understand people conflict style, and conflict doesn't always mean high levels of risk or toxic, but we have a high workload. Miss had to finish, Miss Clark had to finish she record and forecast. Somebody need to get home and the boss having a meeting, it could become a conflict. And you will have a style. So let's talk about, so let me continue. So some persons, when a conflict is actually taking place, they have this style, but they actually have the action. So what I would have spoken before when I said, show you this picture, this is the adjective. So this describing it. However, this is the verb. This is the actual thing now. This is how you're going to respond. So some people are very passive. And the passive, they are emotionally dishonest, they're indirect. Some people may say it is something like the turtle. They're just passive. They just avoid things. So other rights and needs may take precedent over their own. So I kind of my way or any way, you know, like, okay, your way. So passive means they're less confrontational. They don't like conflict. So they might be very apologetic. They might be self-denying or blaming because they'll say, maybe if I did this, if I didn't do this, maybe because, so they might say, I'm so sorry, maybe if I didn't say this, they might have very passive. Some people, on the other hand, is passive-aggressive. So this person is also emotionally disconnected and indirect, but they are self-denying at first. Then they become self-enhancing to experience the other later. So what is passive aggressive in a subtle way? You know, sometimes when our children do passive aggressive, they know they can't answer you, but they have a way they could slow down the thing. They could start to not understand. They start to have a non-verbal response. And they start to say, you're being rude, but they didn't say anything. But the body language showing that they're standing up. I ain't taking all it. So what it does, it is first they deny self. They must say, well, maybe it's something me, maybe something I did. And then afterwards they say, well, even if I do it, so what? So this is where most of our children, especially as adolescents, they are very passive aggressive. So you're saying they're rude, but if somebody asks you how they're rude, you don't really have a deviant behavior, but it's still a behavior. Where there are persons who become very aggressive. So they inappropriately, they honest. You know, it has somebody say, I'm talking my truth. I'm telling you the truth. But it's the extent to what end? To what end do they do that? And they're very direct and they're very expressive and they're attacking and they're blaming and they're controlling and they're self-enhancing. They see themselves, it's all about them. So they are boldly insisting that they're right and their needs must be prevailed at the extent of anybody or everybody. Miss, teacher, neighbor, aggressive. And then there is the ideal that we all really want to grow our children to this place, is to really be assertive, appropriately, the honest, the direct. It is self-enhancing. So they're trying to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Not because mommy say it or daddy, but they know from their experiences and the consequences. So they are self-confident. This is a self-confident individual. They're very empathetic to emotions of all involved. So they clearly express that both have rights and needs. I want us to know that in parenting, we have to be familiar with our style of communication as well as our children in the 21st century. Why? Because they're different from us. They're different from us. So there's the learning behavior, and I need to journey this until, and we are almost there, just about 2 slides to go, but I have to journey through this because I want you to see the bigger picture. It's not just about parenting, boys is this way and girls is this way. We'll talk about that next week, but this is the theory and the foundation that is being laid. And this is for all human interactions. So our behavior, when you see someone has a behavior, there is a biological composition that comes with that, the deductive from their genes and their moral values and what was learned and their belief, but there's an environment aspect of where they spend time. And if that environment is healthy or unhealthy, that can also influence a behavior. So if you grow up with high moral values and your parents or you provide a very healthy environment for your children, their behavior will manifest that. If you grow up in high values and then you have the child in an environment that's very unhealthy, it also produces a behavior that may not be based on what you all believe in. And then if you have genetics that very high in conflict predisposed and a child live in a very violent and aggressive environment, it explains the behavior of that child. So what really happens, sometimes you may say children grow up in a house and how everybody's so different. Is the water they're drinking? Why they're so different? It's because it is based on a social learning theory. It says that whatever we pay attention to, it becomes a stimuli. It stimulates our focus. So if somebody on this watch right now, they're paying attention to what I'm speaking, that is where their focus will be. Some people might say, oh my God, I like that hairstyle or I don't like that hairstyle. They might be listening to me, but they're also focusing on my hairstyle. Somebody might be looking and they say, oh God, I like how that white and yellow look. Oh, you know, I want a white place. Oh, but you know, I want a yellow cardigan or a white top. And so wherever we pay attention is where it stimulates us and focus and where what we'll retain more. So it comes into retention. So you start to rehearse it. So I use it myself as a working definition. Somebody might say, you know, I feel I want to do a natural hairstyle. Or I feel like one guy yellow and I go for a white and yellow. You know, I didn't think I liked yellow. I wonder how it look. But this is also for behavior. So anything that we do at home, 80% of our children's learning come from looking at us. They call it social observation. And 20% is taught lessons. So they're looking at you, and if your behavior is a nice high moral value, the child will now retain some of that. And what we'll start to do is rehearse it because they encode it. So it means that when they go to school, they start to act just like you. They do things like you, they dress like you, they talk like you. Retain. And then there's this motor reproduction where they practice based on feedback. So people now say, oh my God, I like that. Or I like how you do this. So you're such a nice child or quiet. And based on those feedback, the child is now eager to become more like it. And it is based on a motivation, based on a reward that is reinforced. So this can be done positively or negatively. That this is what people don't understand about environmental. So attention. So if I'm in a home and daddy is always insulting mommy, making her cry, making her feel very frustrated, and one child is looking at that behavior and saying, I don't want to be like that. But then another child could look at that behavior and like it and say, I like how daddy is operating. And when daddy says, shut up, she just has to shut up. And that child could go to school, rehearse that behavior. The motor reproduction is the verb, the action. And that child could start to practice bullying because they were motivated by the role model of the parent they were observing the behavior. And this is what parents have to be so careful in their behavior, because there's a child who will be enabled by that behavior. You're motivating. They want to have the same experience you having, healthy or unhealthy. So this is where sometimes we grew up where our parents say as I do, but you know, they wanted us to focus on what they said. This generation, the 21st century, is focusing on who we are. They're looking at us. So if you want us to do right, you have to do right. Whereas a long time our parents could have done wrong and we had to do right. This generation will challenge the very core. Why is that? The exposure of information. So they could Google, they're on social media. So we are going to come now because we are wrapping up. So this is where we're going into parenting style. And in parenting style, there's the authoritarian. So this is the style of parenting that is a forceful, is understanding, like the shark, it's my way, this is how we're doing it. Then we have the authoritative style. This style understands that each person in a family has a role and a function. So the parents have their role, the siblings have their role, the child have their role, the parent, child have a role. So they see the family as having roles, and there's this reward and punishment. When you do good, you're rewarded, and when you do bad, there's a consequence for it. Then there's the permissive. They call this style is the New Age style. It's a kind of permissive approach. So this is where you may see parents, they want the child to be happy at all costs. So they avoiding disciplining the child because they want the child to be approved. And some persons adopt this permissive style, especially if they come from broken families or single parent family. And they feel that they need to overcompensate the child because mommy is there or daddy is there. Or you know, they've been through a lot. But that style of parenting have its positive and it have its negative, because the child now feels very entitled, and also they feel equal to the parent because they are in control. Then we have the neglectful parenting. And I like to say this person who is emotionally disconnected. So this person could have experienced a very traumatic, and they really just don't know how to do parenting. They just don't. So they avoid the experience. So these are based on the style of parent, there's an attachment. And some persons who are very avoidant, you might have met some adults, they are very, they feel very independent and self-sufficient. And when I meet that person, it means that that person, it tells me the style of parenting, that person would have experienced some level of neglect or rejection. And it could be based on being in a big family and being lost, the lost child, or they experience some trauma, maybe the death of a loved one, or they move, or unemployment, or something happened and the child just feels lost, and that person grows into a very avoidant person. Some persons are fearful avoidant, And it means that they want love, but they are afraid to be loved or to show love or to experience love based on their life experiences. So they call it fearful avoidance. These are persons who have had child abuse or experienced domestic violence, or they might have been in natural disasters, and they are so fearful to connect to people because they believe that if they connect, they may lose them. Then there's the most of us experience the anxious attachment. Would they like me? Would they like someone like me? You know, you're going to the workplace, you're new and you're like, I wonder if I'll make friends. These are some of the very same things, not all of what I explained, our children experience them. And of course, there's the best fit, the secure person, which is such a small percentage of humanity. So I want us to look at this video and then you will tell me, what have you learned? What did you take away from today's session? And next week we will be journeying through, is there a difference with boys and girls? So we're getting into the children, but we needed to go through this route today. Cool. So it's just a 2 minutes.
Today I want to talk to you about attachment theory. So what is attachment? Well, it's the connection between people that's made for the purposes of taking care of or being taken care of. Attachment occurs between a parent and a child from the moment of birth, possibly from the moment of conception. And effectively, the child is intuitively asking the question, will my needs be met? The child arrives at a conclusion anywhere from yes, probably, maybe, unlikely, to no. If the conclusion is to the yes, probably end, then the child is likely to be securely attached. If it's towards the maybe, unlikely, or no end, the child may be insecurely attached. In the insecure situation, the child has very little power to change the parenting style, but they will tend to adapt their personhood in order to survive. This becomes their attachment style. One style is to be avoidant. That's to not have or not know our needs, so the frustration of them not being met is not so painful. Another style is to be continually checking to make sure that your needs are being attended to. Sometimes we call this needy. The official term is preoccupied. Another style is to make absolutely sure that your needs are going to be met. Sometimes we call this controlling. Another response can be to flip unpredictably between a range of styles. We call this chaotic. Our attachment style has implications for our adult relationships, and secure attachment can be learned in therapy. If you found this video interesting or helpful, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.
So ladies, we have come to the end of our session today. And next week, we will be journeying here. So I'm just going to give you a little peek. Is there a difference in parenting boys and girls? And this will be from the expert. So I wish to thank you all so much for the opportunity. It doesn't matter the figures, how many persons join on, but knowing that someone's life will be transformed and they could share it. So are there any questions?
I don't have a question, but this session was very enlightening to me. Very much so. I learned a lot from it.
I also want to echo the same sentiment. It was very informative. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I do hope that the recording could be made available to us, that we could also always go back and look at it and, make our own personal notes from the latter part that you covered there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So that will be up to Ms. Clark, who you all will contact her for that. Yeah, not a problem.
But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith.
You're
I
welcome.
particularly like that slide with conflict, how you handle conflict. You know, it really had me reflecting on how I deal with things. And I recognize I do different things at different times. So we could really be like a whale next one time and actually shark, and next time like a fox, and next time like the turtle, etc. But it was quite insightful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I want to tell you this, Talia. Is it Tahila or Talia?
Tahila.
Tahila, right. My daughter is Tahila with the two L's. But you just have to ask people to pronounce Tahila. The thing is when it comes to parenting, especially in the 21st century, it's about consistency and maintenance, about boundaries. And sometimes what we do is don't set fixed boundaries and make them consistent. So today it might be okay. And if the child does the same thing tomorrow, depends on who is there tomorrow, it is not okay. And can you imagine the perplexity and how it challenges our credibility as adults when we don't set a standard on stuff? So the child now, there's this level of anxiety because I don't know if when I do this today, if I will be rewarded for this behavior or if it will become at a punishment. So that is why it is important for us to understand our style of conflict and to be consistent.
Thank you.
Yeah. As well as parents, trust and mistrust, understanding when we teach our children confidentiality. It's a learned behavior. Confidentiality don't just happen as a skill. So simple things in families, the child may tell you something and they say, do tell nobody. Now, you're going and tell the father, or the father going and tell the mother, but you all must have a code of ethic that you pretend you didn't know for confidentiality. Or the child come and say, Mommy, I want to tell you something, but don't tell nobody, eh? And then 30 seconds, you go on the phone, you call your sister, you call your grandmother, you tell your friend, you start to laugh at the child. Just imagine the child says, so. But I told you. So when this child now goes out to school, and they tell Miss your business, and you want to flip the script, it's because it's a learned behavior, because we told them that you don't have to be confidential. So if it doesn't just happen, it comes like teaching our children integrity. And we're not going to do this in this series, but if Miss Clark wants me on, we will talk about this again in another, that I teach parenting style, and to rethink it. So you're talking about you want your child to have integrity and keep with personal business at home and all those things. But hear this, you have a best friend. You spend the last hour on the phone talking with your friend. And then when you hang up your phone, checking out, oh God, that one always have a story. Oh God, there's always some. What you are indirectly teaching your child, because I'm observing it, is there's no loyalty. I don't have to be loyal. So they now will go and sabotage and compromise. And sometimes we ask the question, where you learn that behavior from? And if only we could hear the heart and mind of a child, they will look back and say, you are learning from. Yes, so now we have to understand as parents, remember parents, brother, you all is caregivers. So whether it's a teacher, we have to now understand loyalty, confidentiality, integrity, consistency. So you, a teacher, you might be caring about me now, but then you're in the staff room discussing and another teacher on the corridor coming down and say, oh, so it's you. It's you is the one. All those things. So when we see how they mirror back to society, it's basically society is us. So whatever we put out there, that is what we see, and that's the mirror. So we have to change and rethink our narrative. And thank you all so much, because we will go for next hour here.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Arlene Smith. I really, really appreciate, and I know the parents and everybody here really appreciate. And I just want to echo one of the things that you say. So even we have learned that all of us are parents, whether we are educators, whether we're in the school system, whether we're a neighbor, whatever, we all are parents to the young people that we interact with directly or indirectly. And with all of that, they are very observant, and what they see, they express so much more. Like the saying go, you give them an inch, they take a yard. So even what we replicate, they replicate exponentially. So it's not just they replicate in the good, replicating the bar and to a much larger extent than what we would have assumed that they would have been learning and observing from us. Because even as Mrs. Smith would have started off, is like we of the youths, these 21st century boys and girls are very visual. So it's not just do as I say, but they would do as you do and do it in excess. So that's really, really important in our interactions with them and around them. So it's not necessarily our direct connections with them, sometimes the indirect. So like even in our school environment, a lot of children don't trust adults, whether it's the guidance officer, whether it's the teacher, and sometimes they suffer in silence and they don't share because I can't trust nobody home, and I clearly can't trust adults in my environment, whether it's at school, at play, in the field, on whatever extracurricular activity. So it's very noteworthy that we should examine ourselves in terms of our styles, our parenting style, our conflict styles, and so many other things so that we can be better stewards of those around us that are young so that we could have a better society. And I don't want to ramble too much, but I really want to say thank you all so much for staying with us way past time. And I look forward to seeing you all next week, Wednesday, the same time from 6 to whatever. And also, if you all want to have any more sessions in a different topic, reach out to me. I would organize whether to bring back Mrs. Arlene Smith or somebody else so that we can be empowered to be better stewards to those within our charge. All right. I don't know, you'll have any comments, any questions, feel free to ask.
Only one thing I would like to know if would the recording be available for
Yes.
further reference?
Of course. So what I would do by tomorrow, please God, I would try to clean up the files and stuff, and I would post it on the Facebook page, Miss Clark's Math Space, so that you would have access to it there. I'll also put like a YouTube link so that you would be able to see it, and I'll put it public so that you can benefit, rewind, replay, and even share with other parents so that they too can benefit. And we know that parents don't just mean biological, but it means all those who care for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it a lot. And thanks again. I am so glad I logged in today. I'm so glad I got a wealth of knowledge today. Thanks a lot.
You're most welcome, Miss Messiah. All right, so thank you so much. And with that, have a good night. Blessings.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, and thank you again.
No problem.